Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Unlock the Middle. Little pump up the volume. That reminds me back of a long time ago in my dancing days, if I had any back then. My name is Dean Packard, and I am the principal of Charlton Middle School, and you are watching Unlock the Middle, a place where we bring to life everything that's great about middle-level education. We're talking about authors, we're talking about teachers, we're talking about any topic that is just relevant to what we do. I'm alongside of me today, I have my co-host, as always, Principal Chris Starcheski of Dudley Middle School. Chris, how are you? Welcome aboard. You know how I feel about Sunday nights, and it's 2021, Chris. I can't believe we're already there.
Man, it came on quick, it came on fast, and that 2020 is in the rearview mirror. It doesn't mean that we don't have challenges ahead, though. We are fully prepared and ready to take them on. That's for darn sure with the experiences we've had these past months. But I am pretty fired up, Dean, because getting back on, we had a couple of nights off. You know,
we took
Tuesday off.
We needed it.
Friday off. Although Friday, New Year's Day, we had some replays going on out there from our Unlock the Middle archives.
The super replay, 27 different episodes coming at you every 30 minutes. I was like, my head was spinning. There was so many of them, but great feedback. It was so good to reach back out to the people that came on our show. They are just amazing. They give us that mojo. They give us that energy to really sell our product, Chris. And I'll tell you what, you know, it's been fun. I think we've only just begun to start what we're going to do, the mountain that we're climbing, but each week we get better and better. We're not going to disappoint tonight. I mean, we're heading out to the great state of Ohio, and we are going to be talking to a sitting superintendent who's climbed the ladder and has done everything that we've done, Chris, except being a superintendent, my friend. Okay, who knows? Never know what the future is going to hold for both of us. But more importantly, he's really matriculated into that role, and he's written a book, and it's a real interest to me, and I can't wait to really start talking about it.
Yeah, me too, Dean. You know, there are a lot of parallels between the title of the book and the experiences that Dr. Joe Clark has had and his role as an educator. There are real parallels to his two worlds that came together as an educator. And I'm looking forward to diving in. What do you say we bring Joe in and get rolling?
Well, why don't I do that, Chris? I'm going to bring him in, and why don't you do the bio for him, okay?
I'd be honored. Hey, everybody out there in Unlock the Middle Land. Dr. Joe Clark, the superintendent of Nordonia Hills City Schools, which is located midway between Akron and Cleveland, Ohio. Big day out there this day in football.
Go
Browns, baby.
Go Browns. Browns, they ended a horrible streak of 18 years without playoffs, and it's a celebration here in Northeast Ohio, I can tell you that. And one of our graduates, actually, Nordonia High School graduate Denzel Ward, is a big part of that. He's COVID, he's in COVID protocol right now, so he didn't play today, but we're really proud of him.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I'm fired up, and as a Patriots fan, I can understand the excitement of getting into the playoffs because I'm missing it woefully right now. But I'll get over it. We'll win the Super Bowl in a year or two, and get back at it. But hey, everybody, just so you know, Dr. Clark was not always an educator extraordinaire. He was also a mobile disc jockey for 25 years. He probably still spins some tunes now. Especially at the middle school dances where I'm sure he's a guest. But he also has served as a camp director for 10 years, which is fantastic. You know, I was at camp for a number of years as a counselor, and I stood in as a DJ once. They were in a jam. Certainly not a great experience for me. But Joe, welcome, and
thank you.
Joining us.
And we also left out the fact that Joe is also a professor at American College of Education in the leadership program. So the credibility and the pedigree is definitely there for what we're going to talk about today. I just love the journey that he's taken from A to Z to get where he is today. So, Joe, talk to us a little bit about your book. Talk to us a little bit about what got you started with this willingness to write this book. We all know how an arduous task that can be to write a book and the time-consumingness of it. So, talk about it.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'll tell you what. I've always wanted to be a writer, to be honest. I went to Kent State University. I had an English degree, and my minor was in creative writing. And I'll try and make the story as short as I can. But back in college, I had written a bunch of short stories for this class that I was taking. And I decided, I'm going to try and get one published. So I sent this story off to a few literary magazines, got a ton of rejections, but finally, a small literary magazine in Pennsylvania responded to me that, hey, we love the story that you wrote. We're going to print it. But we want you to make a couple changes. And so they sent it to me. I made a couple changes. I sent it back to them, and I waited and I waited and I waited. Like 6 months later, I get a letter from them saying, hey, dear Joe Clark, I hate to inform you that our editor was hit and killed by a train. And your story, I mean, I'm laughing now. It was tragic. But this is, 30 years ago. Your story was in his inbox, but we're going a different direction. And so I often think about how my life might have been different if that story was published, and what if things have changed out. I'm glad it didn't. I continued my career in education and being a DJ and being a camp director. And so I've always wanted to write. And over the last several years, I took pen to paper. I started a blog and took a lot of what I had put in my blog, mixed it up, and put it into a book. And that's what this If the Dance Floor is Empty, Change the Song is.
That is awesome, Joe. I appreciate the story. I think it's indicative of how one turn of the page can really drive our future and our connections. And I think it's a fantastic story. And I understood the humor when you were chuckling about that as well. I see some humor in that. Dean.
Chris, if I could just interject for a second here. We're going to give away a signed copy of the book tonight to somebody who poses what we consider the best question of the evening. So that won't be given away until the end of the show. So we're going to be watching in the comments section as we move forward here. So again, I just wanted to make sure that's totally clear to everybody. Chris, back to you. I know you had a question that was ready to go.
Hey, thanks. So Joe, the title of the book, If the Dance Floor is Empty, Change the Song. Obviously, this jumps back to your days as a DJ. Talk a little bit about that title and the meaningful nature of it to educators.
Yeah, I will. And so, Chris, you said so. That I had multiple careers. Well, the fact is, when you're a young educator, you have many jobs at one time. I think most of us who entered the field of education did lots of things, and so I happened to have 3 jobs at once when I started my career. I was a teacher, and I was a mobile disc jockey, and I also directed the summer camp in the summertime. And so what this book is, it's a whole bunch of stories from a lot of my different life experiences as an educator, but also as a camp director, and as the title implies, as my time as a mobile DJ. I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of weddings and parties and school dances. I think my claim to fame, or my brush with greatness, is I DJ'd LeBron James's high school graduation party, which was kind of cool. And being so close to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I did parties for Dan Marino, John Elway when they got in. But other than those, it was just a lot of weddings and parties and school dances. And when I first started DJing, I found myself, often blaming the audience if it was a boring night. Nobody's on the floor. You guys are horrible. Why don't you have more fun? And there's kind of an epiphany moment where I realized, well, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm not playing good music. And sure enough, that's the case that I came to find. If the dance floor is empty, change the song, put on something that people are going to like. And I take that message as a DJ to the world of education, where so often a teacher might be so frustrated that their kids aren't engaged in a lesson. And instead of blaming the kids, look internally. But it's true for principals too. How many faculty meetings do you have where people are glazed over? It's not their fault, right? It's our fault.
Yeah,
how many meetings do I have as a superintendent with principals where they're disengaged? Well, it's my fault. I've got to be more engaging for them. And that's what that story tells. And then the book is a bunch of other stories of DJing and camp directing and teaching and principaling and superintending. And I also am the youngest of 11 kids. So when you grow up with 10 older brothers and sisters, you get a whole lot of stories out of that too. So really the book is, there's no research in it. There's no test scores. There's none of that. It's a lot of stories that I think people can relate to.
That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah, so it's real. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and sort of like our next topic, is campus for campers, school is for students. Every one of our decisions that we make, whether it be a teacher, a principal, a superintendent, has to be for the betterment of kids. Let's dig into that a little bit and what that actually means through your lens, Joe.
Yeah. So another big part of the book, I talk about the camp directing. When I was at camp, honestly, guys, if I could be a camp director and put food on the table, I probably would have done that, because my job working at a CYO Camp Christopher in beautiful Bath, Ohio, is just a great job. And it's so much fun that, I'd always had a great counseling staff, but sometimes you get lost in the fun of the job and you sometimes forget why you're there, which is for the campers. So, for example, it might be between lunch and swimming, when the kids are changing for swimming and we're supposed to be out in the field playing with the kids. And I might see a bunch of counselors sitting around a picnic table talking about their dates over the weekend or whatever. So what became a kind of a mantra for us was, hey, camp is for the campers. And what that meant was, hey, check yourself. What are you doing? And is what you're doing right now for the benefit of the campers, or is it for the benefit of you? If it's a tater tot day at lunch and the counselors are all dipping into the tots before the kids are fed, hey, camp is for the campers. That meant you got to wait. It's bury your counselor in the sand day, and I don't want to get buried. It's so gross, but camp is for the campers. Well, just like camp is for the campers, school is for the students. And I think so often we find ourselves in whatever position we have, teacher, principal, superintendent, making decisions for adult convenience rather than what's best for kids. And so we always got to remember, camps for the campers, schools for the students. Let's make those decisions that are going to empower kids to be the best that they can be.
Never easy to do that sometimes too. And it's kind of like creating a culture that once we get into this business, we kind of check our own egos at the door. In everything that we do, if we do that with the thought process of betterment for kids, the better the institution is for growth for all children. So you're absolutely right, Joe. And that happens at all levels.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm reflecting back on your words, and I think it's fantastic. The analogy of the campus for campers, school is for all for the students, and I think about the different stakeholder groups into all the decisions that we're making as building principals, that you're making, and all your colleagues who are superintendents are making. Really, we've got so many different stakeholders, and being able to funnel that message down to what's most important in our work and in our decisions and in our actions, it has to come down to kids. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy for everybody, but we have to be focused as a community on what's best for kids. And, that really requires, oh, sorry, Dean.
No, I apologize. I just want, if you could give us a shout out to where you guys are watching us from in the comments section, we'd appreciate that as well. We want to just kind of keep track of that. And also remember, we're giving away a free book sometime during this session. So the book is all about, what we're talking about tonight. And Joe's going to sign that and send it out. So please send in a comment and we will take it from there. So Chris, back to you. Sorry about that. We get that time delay. It's never on there if they missed us coming in.
Yeah, no, and Joe. So as we talk about what's best for kids, and we try and relate all those stakeholder perspectives into one funnel, one tunnel, it really comes down to relationships. And you've got a topic here, in that book that's pencil, sporks, and compliance. The focus on relationships and instruction. I'm intrigued by the integration of sporks into this conversation. Take it away, man.
So this comes back from my middle school principal days. This story about really compliance in pencils. And I made this, let me tell you a little bit about the story. So it's a 6th grade class, right? 6th grade class, student goes to take a test, and it's a social studies class. And the teacher wants the student to take the test in pencil instead of pen. I don't know why. That's just what the rule is. And the kid doesn't have a pencil. Asks the teacher, hey, I forgot my pencil today. Can I borrow one? And the response is, no, you can't. You're supposed to be responsible. So the kid takes the test in pen, gets it back, 86%. Big red letters, no pencil, 0. And the kid gets a 0 on a test that, he asked to borrow the pencil. And it's social study. I don't even get that. So, of course, we had this discussion, and parent comes in and all this. And long story short, the kid got the 86% because the test is supposed to measure what your knowledge is, not your responsibility. But this teacher was very, very adamant that, it's our job to teach kids to be responsible. And I agree, it's our job to teach kids to be responsible, but we're not going to grade them on it. And I made the spork comment, which was, listen, if a surgeon goes into the operating room and he forgot his scalpel, they're not giving him a spork. They're going to give the guy a scalpel. I personally never have a pen on me. Everywhere I go, I'm like, can I borrow a pen? And here I am, 50 years old, multiple degrees, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? People borrow, lend me a pencil or a pen. So I just think we need to keep sight of what is most important in schools. And again, responsibility is important, but what's most important is, do we have relationships with kids? That kid that day did not learn to bring a pencil to class. What he learned was, I hate school because I was treated so poorly, So we got to focus always on relationships, good instruction. Those are the things that our focus should be on.
I think that story is quite powerful, actually. And as a former math teacher, I could tell you that I started out telling my kids everything has to be in pencil. And then I said, you know what? I don't care anymore. Just let's get the work done. Show me the learning.
Yeah. And also, I'm on this, this video cast, and I'm talking, and guys, I'm not perfect. I've made all these same mistakes, right? I've made all these same mistakes. When I was a teacher, I made really bad decisions also, where I would take points off because the kid forgot to put his name or they didn't double space, all those things that I sit back all these years later thinking, what was I doing? And I think it's fine to make mistakes as long as we continue to focus on them and figure out what can we do better.
I'd love to have a deep conversation about ways to measure and teach personal responsibility that does not correlate back to the pen, the almighty red pen on an assessment, because I think that would be a really interesting discussion, obviously for another time. But I hold the same conversation with faculty members in my own school. They do believe that personal responsibility is a very important part of growth. And I too agree, but it's not something we're assessing them on when it's knowledge base.
And I'm doing, even as a superintendent, I'm doing the same thing. When the teacher is supposed to give me their transcripts by January 31st so they can get the raise, if they turn it in on February 1st, I accept it. Why? Because that's what I would want that person to do for me. It's just, I saw somebody mention empathy. It is all about empathy. And just, so often we have rules that are just there for our own power. We want to be able to control something. And I think we can grow a lot when we realize that, managers can enforce rules. Leaders need to know when it's appropriate to change the rules.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
The rules are there to guide us, and I think that's the way we should look at that. And there's no doubt about that whatsoever. My question, if I could, let's dig in a little bit deeper, and this goes back into your book a little bit. Everyone will be happy at your retirement party. Okay, you think about that lens and down the future. Okay, it's not only important to be a good teacher, but it's also important to be a good colleague, to be a good support person, because that's what we do every day when we walk into a school or when we're part of a team. How important is that through the lens of your book, Joe?
Yeah, that's so I talk a whole lot. There's probably, a fifth of the book, 20% of it probably talks about that whole idea about how to interact with colleagues and whatnot, because, all of us one day are going to retire. We're going to have a retirement party and everybody there is going to be happy. And our hope is that people are there happy because we're retiring and not, or for us retiring and not because we're retiring. It's so important. You have to be more than a good a teacher. You have to be more than a good principal. You have to be a good employee. And that means you have to get along with people. You have to have be able to have ethical disagreements. Nobody expects everybody to get along all the time. But if we're not going to get along, it's going to be a closed door discussion, in professional ways, and we're not going to bring kids into it, and we're not going to fight in the faculty lounge, and we're not going to sabotage people. We really are a profession of learners, and we need to learn together and work together. And you might be the best teacher in the world, but if your colleagues can't stand being around you, then are you really that good? I would argue no.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the last things I wrote in my email that went out to my staff for tomorrow morning was that enjoy the week with your students and your colleagues, because it's vitally important that you have that blend between both, because that's the fuel that keeps you going. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this job is so hard, guys. The job is so hard. So when you work in a community where people care for each other and they're able to have ethical disagreements, it's so much easier to go to work, you know?
Absolutely is. Joe, as we, I'm thinking back to, the sporks and the compliance conversation. And that comes down to me about risk taking and setting aside, what some personal beliefs might be, and to be able to influence kids. And one of the biggest risks that an educator can take who's concerned about compliance is apologizing for a decision that they made, an action that they took in class, or an answer that they gave that was wrong. Got to be willing to admit and correct mistakes. And how do we go about creating a good narrative to address that?
Yeah, I believe in this strongly, and in fact, I think every interview I've ever had, I always tell the people interviewing me that I'm only going to make one promise, and the one promise I'm going to make is I'm going to mess up. I will screw up something, but I promise that I'll admit when I do, and I'll fix it, and I'll try not to do it again. And it's so true in all of our positions, teacher, principal, superintendent, whatever, is nobody expects us to be perfect. So when we do see that we've made a mistake, the absolute best thing to do is say, oh, I made a mistake. I'm sorry about it. Tell people you did it. And they will be very, very, we're a very, very forgiving society, and people forgive that. What they won't forgive is if you deflect blame, or if you try to continue on with a bad decision. And I just think you gain so much more respect, and you build trust when you have the vulnerability to say, I messed up, I made a mistake. And in my book, you'll read a story about a mistake I made that ended me up at the State Department of Elections, where I was found guilty of an election violation. But because before I even went down there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. What was I thinking? And I apologize, and I made up for it. And it's really not that bad. So that's a teaser alert. I'm hoping you'll buy the book to say, oh my gosh, what did he do? But it's really not that bad. But it was bad enough that it caused me some grief in my life. And I'm glad that I reacted the way that I did, or it could have been a lot worse.
Failure is part of learning, Joe. And we say it all the time. I don't want a teacher who has a perfect lesson all the time. I want a teacher that thinks outside the box. I want a student that is not driven by getting an A+ on everything. I want a student who is challenged, who is pushed. I get that. That's the difference between, that the drive and the experience of bringing something to the table. So if you're not failing at something, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, then what good are you? Because you're in the middle of this highway going 55 and not doing anything new. So yep. Especially during COVID time period right now, where this whole world is upside down. If there was ever a time to embrace something new and try something new, it's now. More than ever, because you want to engage the kids, just like your book says. If the dance floor is empty, change the song. Well, guess what? Guess what? Look at what you're playing every day. See how that interaction with the kids and yourself is within a classroom. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a principal, whether you're a guidance counselor, it doesn't matter. Whether you're a superintendent, it doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah. Still got the same lens. So how has this book changed you, Joe? Writing it and going through the process of writing it, how has it made you a reflective thinker about who you are and who you want to become down the road?
What writing this book really for me helped me reflect on the great people that I've worked with in my career, the people that I've learned lessons from. I think what you'll find in the book is a lot of stories about things I learned from other people. And I'm so grateful for the team that I work with currently and have worked with throughout my career. And what I hope to do as I move forward is continue to learn, right? You can never be settled with, hey, I've got the superintendent thing down. And even when we thought we did, COVID hits, right? And all these things change all the time. So it's really comes down to core values. What core values do you have that will help you navigate these new icebergs that are dropping in the water around us all the time?
Now, will there be a sequel to this? You got a round 2? You got another? You got to take this and run in another direction? What do you think?
I do have a couple others that I'm working on, and we'll see. I would love to. I really enjoyed writing this. I have one that I'm working on that talks really about how you can rebuild trust in the community based on what my experience has been where I'm working right now. And as you might imagine, there's also a Campus for the Camper sequel that I'm working on. And also there's, I have the youngest, again, of 11. So I've got a whole bunch of stories about my brothers and sisters. In fact, the biggest preparation I ever had for being a superintendent was this. As the youngest of 11, my brothers used to make me climb a tree, and then they'd throw baseballs at me. And nothing prepared me for the superintendency more than that.
That's actually pretty funny.
Hey, Joe, I want to ask you one more question before I hand it over to Chris. As a sitting superintendent right now, I mean, Chris and I are both principals of our buildings. We love what we do. We love the people we work with, and we empower the heck out of them to be the best that they can be. Talk to me through your lens, through your book, through the way you think about empowerment of the people that work with you. What makes it special to work for you, Dr. Joe Clark, and what makes it all tick?
Well, absolutely. I was telling you guys before we got on here that I don't think anybody in their right mind wants to be a superintendent. The hours are horrible. People are mad at you all the time. But I do see it really as a job of service. And so my job as anybody, I think, rises up this career ladder, the higher up you go, the more responsibility you have to serve others. So my job, as I see it, is just what can I do to help the professionals? I've got such smart administrators and teachers and support staff working for us. My job is just to get out of their way, trust that they are professionals, and offer them the support and services that I can. And it's really easy for me when I go to work, realizing that I don't need to know really answers to anything. We have the answers right here. My job, what my job is as a superintendent? I call meetings. That's all I do. I call meetings. We get together. We have a bunch of smart people talk it out, and I sign my name a lot. If you have those two skill sets, sign your name, call meetings, but also the personality of service, I think you can be a successful superintendent. It's the superintendent that wants to control everything. They get in trouble.
There's also a level of trust that you instill and the ability to allow the people to do their job within their fairway, let's call it, and to make their place to be what it needs to be.
And the whole idea that it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, right? We always say, don't cry over spilled milk. Well, if somebody spills milk, don't yell at them. If somebody spills milk, help them clean it up, right? And if you do that, then I think it's a successful organization.
Absolutely love that.
No, you're 100% spot on, Joe. And I think you've taken the lessons from the baseballs in the tree and transitioned into this chair of the superintendency very nicely. Joe Pescia's comment about your brothers were preparing you to be a Browns fan was really a tough comment.
It's fair. It's fair. It's pain. It's years and years of misery.
True. Well, hey. Joe, if I were to pick up your book tomorrow, which I'm eager to actually get a hold of,
me too.
What is the number one tidbit that a school principal is going to walk out with and be reflective of?
Well, I have a whole section for advice for principals, and I think there's a whole lot of stories, and I think the first one that sticks into my head is that when you're a principal, you're going to do a lot of silly things in your life, right? You're going to I've dressed like a hot dog, I've sat on a roof, I've had pies in my face, and you guys have probably done the same thing because that's what principals do, right? And I think everybody expects principals to go to school events and to be seen out in the morning drop-off line or whatever, but the best principals, I think, are the ones that do the things that they are not expected to be at. Our high school principal, every year, every summer, we go out to band camp and we bring popsicles for the band. That's something people don't expect you to do. And when you do those kinds of things, you get you build a lot of relationships. And when you build positive relationships, again, people are willing to forgive you because they know that you have their children's best interest at heart. And I think that goes a long way, much more than, what is your degree or what is your background or any of that. People want to trust the person in charge.
Love it.
Joe, how would you sum up your legacy when you're done with this? What do you want people to remember about Dr. Joe Clark and what he brought to the table? Not only being the youngest of your family and having survived that, but what about your educational legacy? What do you want it to be?
That's a great question. You know what? That's a great question. I think people I want people when I'm done to say, man, he helped me out. He helped me in whatever way. And often that's educational. Well, he allowed me to do this in my classroom. But the other thing that superintendents have the ability to do is impact employees personally. I can't give anybody a raise. I can't give anybody a promotion. What I can give is time. So it's that employee who, their great aunt died, and that doesn't fall under sick leave, but that person meant so much to them that I can say, go ahead, take that time.
Yeah.
That means so much. So I'm hoping that people will remember me as somebody that was just helpful to them. I don't want to be an expert of anything. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I just want to be somebody that was there and helped somebody.
You mean our business is about personal connections?
Absolutely.
Whoever thought about that, Joe?
It always comes down to that, right?
Okay, that was all book stuff, but common sense and personal connections will win out in a lot of things that we do. You're absolutely correct. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I think that the humble nature of that response, Joe, even though the question was a little bit of a hard fastball, was reflective of the actual nature of who you are as not only an educator but as a person. And I am very pleasured to have had an opportunity these last 30 so minutes to sit and chat with you, learn a little bit about Dr. Joe Clark. It's been an absolute pleasure.
So we're going to give a book away. We got to give a book away.
Yeah.
So all right, we've got
you guys selected
in the comment section. Chris, you're always good at this. You want to roll the dice? You want to pick somebody?
Well, we've got a few here. We've got Moriarty History, who is talking about teaching responsibility, but we also teach tolerance and empathy. We've got Joe Pescia, who had
he ordered the book.
You ordered the book already?
Ordered the book,
all right, well,
which is fantastic.
Cancel the order, I guess.
Burn, learning, trust, and autonomy are most important. And I don't know. Can we do 3 books? Can we do 3 books tonight?
I can do 3.
All right, let's do 3.
Let's close it right now. What we're going to ask you guys, though, is just to direct message us on Twitter with your address, and we'll get that over to Joe. We do appreciate you being here tonight. It's a complete pleasure to have Joe on. Joe, you are, I want to call you a man's man, superintendent, principal, teacher, a guy who gets it from the personal connection outward. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you tonight. So, and we, these are things that we really love to do, Chris and I, because what it does is it gives us a chance to extend ourselves and to validate some of the things that we do. And when we hear it from people who've been successful like you, Joe, it just makes it all the more meaningful for us.
Well, you guys are great at it, and I think we all know that it doesn't matter what your title is or what your position is. It's what's here, and you guys have it. So clearly, the kids that you serve are very, very lucky folks, and your staff too. So thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Well, hey, everybody out there in Unlock the Middle End. It's Sunday night, January 3rd of 2021. We're just going to close out episode number 28. The Dance Floor is Empty. Change the Song. Great book that I'm going to be reading by Dr. Joe Clark. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook. Hit up our website for the video archives. Check us out on YouTube. And most importantly, get back on Sunday nights for our flagship show, Unlock the Middle, and follow us on Middle Marvels on Tuesdays and Navigating Leadership on Friday afternoons. Be well, be safe, be strong, and always work to be better, everybody. Keep chugging. And Browns, good luck.
Go Browns. And remember, DM us, guys, out there. Moriarty, we got Mr. Byrne from our Middle Marvels, and Joe, send us your address and we'll get that book out to you. That's all we have for tonight, guys. Stay well, be healthy, and enjoy, and continue to become better.